Hi, I'm Howard Rattan, and I'm sitting out here in the workshop relaxing in between jobs. My daughter told me that once I hit 500 subscribers that I was duty bound to make a subscriber video. So here it is. It's kind of a little thank you to the now over 500 people who are watching my videos. It's a surprise to me as well as to my daughter who is forcing me to make this video. Thank you very much for subscribing to the channel, and I'm hoping that you're enjoying the videos. And as a thank you to those of you that have subscribed, I'm going to dedicate this video to you, and I'm going to show you how I sharpen my cabinet scrapers here in the wood shop. Here's a nice piece of mahogany. I'm going to make a nitty noddy out of this one probably. That was cut for that a long time ago. It's held firmly in the vise. And I'm going to take one of these cabinet scrapers to it. I don't have very many cabinet scrapers because I don't usually need that many to get the job done. Cabinet scrapers are used to get a smooth surface, and they'll go cross grain with the grain any direction, and they'll smooth out even the most squirrely surface that you can imagine. This one's been used quite a while, and you can see it's creating more dust than it is shavings. There's a couple of spots on here that are sharp, but most of the length or most of the edge on this cabinet scraper is actually pretty dull because all I'm getting is dust. So I'm going to show you how I sharpen this with my little wooden jig that I've created off a pattern off of the internet. Cabinet scrapers come in all shapes and sizes. This is just a plain old Sandvik rectangular one that's been used quite a lot. It's got some crud on it. It looks like a little rust that's going to have to come off. And before I go and sharpen this, I'm going to have to take the burr off because I'm going to start this from scratch. Normally you don't have to go through this entire process for every sharpening, but when you're starting a cabinet scraper from scratch, or when you have one like this that's a little bit in need of a sharpening, I like to go through the whole process. And the whole process involves smoothing the edges with a file, and then flattening everything with sharpening stones, and then, oops, I got water everywhere, and then going through the process of making the burr. So I'm going to start off by taking a fairly smooth file. This one's a half round, but it's, you know, it's not too rough and not too fine. I'm just going to take the sawdust out of it, which I haven't done. And I'll take this file and I'm just going to take it across the edges here and just kind of knock that burr off. Hope you can see that on camera. So I'm just going to knock the burr off so it doesn't cut the hell out of my sharpening stones. And then I'm going to flatten the thing with a stone. Okay, so I don't have to, that one actually may be a little rough. We'll go for something a little bit smoother. This is quite a smooth file. This one will make a nice smooth cut. If you aren't careful, you can cut quite a groove in your sharpening stones with these cabinet scrapers. So I like to, when I flatten the faces of them, I like to make sure that I've taken quite a bit of this burr off, and that file's doing a much better job. Now it's not going to be perfect, and I'm not finished with filing because I have to file this edge. Like this edge will have little undulations in it. I have to file those off too. So I'm just going to start with the faces, and then I'll joint the edge. That's what it's called, jointing the edge, and that will give us something that's ready to hone and then start polishing and putting a burr on. So I'll take my sharpening stones. This is, you may have seen the video that I put up on this little pond. I hate this pond. It flies all around the place. There's no way to clamp it down. It's a royal pain. It unfortunately does the job, however, so I'll use the other side. I'm trying to save that one. It hasn't been used yet. Now all I'll do is I'll make sure that this stone is properly lubricated, and then all I want to do is, like I'm doing a plane iron, I'll take this. See what I mean? I hate this thing. I've tried making the Frank Klaus one, and I don't know if you're very observant, you may have seen in one of my earlier shop tour videos on the floor down in the corner down there, there's a lot of water damage looking stuff. For 3 or 4 years I thought it was ice dams. It's not. I didn't realize it because I'd forgotten all about it, but when I made the Frank Klaus one, I must have done something wrong, because all the water leaked out of it and down the wall, and that's what that water damage is, or the water stains are from, is from that waterstone pond leaking. So all I do is I'm going to go over this until I get a nice flat surface. It's not critical, but I've always found that the flatter and smoother the surface you start from, the better off your end result is. So I will do this for a while, and then I'll come back and show you what I ended up with. I'm finished on the 1,000 grit stone, and I'm just sort of cleaning it off so that I don't get a lot of crud on my 4,000 grit stone. Although this pond is kind of like a slough, it's full of crud. Nothing stays clean in this. And I'll just wet up this 4,000 grit stone. You can see that there's not a lot of difference. It's not all as dull as everywhere else. I mean, it is what it is. But along some of the edges, it's pretty well. I mean, the corners don't bother me. I never use the ends. I just use the middle of these parts, so they're more or less ready to go. And I just want everything flat with nothing hanging over the edge. And then I can take it over to the 4,000 grit, and I'm just going to repeat the same procedure, which is a little tougher because they really like to stick. And I'll just repeat it with the same procedure to try and get it just a little bit smoother, just so I'm starting off with a reasonably smooth surface. This is the part I hate the most. If anyone knows of a better way to do this part, or how to keep it from sticking to the stone, you can let me know. Okay, that's probably as good as it's going to get, and that's good enough for me. At this point, it should be, all the undulations should be pretty much out of it. I should have a nice flat plate to start with, and then I will go and joint the edges, and I'll show you my wooden jointing jig as soon as I've got this thing dried up. This is a pretty thick scraper. There's all kinds of them. I prefer a thick one because I find that I bend the thinner ones too much and then I gouge everything out. This keeps the surface flatter. Now that it's dry, it's pretty dull. It's nice and smooth. There's no burr left over anywhere. The nice thing I like about it, I don't want this part shiny because my fingers get a little bit more purchase on it that way and it doesn't slide around. Alright, I'm going to get out the rig to do the jointing with. In the past I've been asked about this. This is the Ralph Brendler jig. It was off Ralph Brendler's website. I don't know if it's on the internet now, but it used to be on the internet. And that's where I found this little jig, and I've been using it ever since, and I really like it. It's a block of cherry. It's about 7/8 by 7/8, and it's got this rabbet cut in it that's about 1/8 of an inch deep and about 1/2 of an inch wide. And the overall jig is about 8 inches long, which is, you need to be able to sit a file in this jig. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take, and I'm only going to joint the top edge and the bottom edge, and I'm going to put this scraper inside the vise. I used to use a metal vise, but that was when I had a bigger shop and I had room for one. and I'm going to try and tighten this up. Now this has been a problem in a wooden vise, a metal vise. I used to have wooden lined jaws, but I could pinch this a lot better. I find that in this it slips more, but you know what? Today it's not slipping. Make me a liar. See if I care. I've got this old file here. It's nothing special. It's just flat, and there's not too much of an edge on it, and it sits on there. And I rest this wooden surface against the scraper, and I have to push on the scraper or else it'll bend, and I don't want that to happen. And all I do is make a few passes, and I don't want to press too heavily or I will deform the metal and then things won't be straight. I'm mostly worried about making sure that file stays pinched inside that little groove. And I just go back and forth a few times. And when I can feel that it's nice and smooth this way, maybe not so smooth crossways, but it's nice and smooth and flat, and the light, I'm just looking at it under a raking light, and it looks like it's even. So I'm going to call it quits for that and flip it over and do it again. Now I'll see, I don't know if in the camera I can catch that, but I get a nice flat glint off that edge. So I'll repeat for the other side, and then I'll come back. Okay, now that I've jointed the edge, I am going to polish the edge. So I'm just going to take my stone back out of this pond, stick it back in the little cradle that I got. And I'll get this one out and set up already. And all I want to do is put the scraper on here, and you want to be careful you don't cut into your stone too much. So I'm going to lightly hold it as close to 90 as I can, and just try and go back and forth. I don't want to cut a slice right into the stone. Now, that little roughness I felt going crossways across when I was feeling it with my thumb after jointing, once that's gone, I'm good to go. So that's pretty much gone. One more for good measure, because I'm obsessive compulsive. And then I'll re-wet this because it dries out really fast, especially in warm weather today. And I'll do the same thing on the 4000 stone. And I can feel I got a nice smooth edge the way it's skating across. So I have to be careful I don't saw my stone in half. Okay. And I have a nice edge on there, which I can't really show you, I suppose. You can see the glint off of it, but that's about it. Okay, I'm going to repeat for the other one. You can feel the difference when you first start out. You can feel the file marks coming off. It's such a thin area that any little unevenness or inconsistency, you can feel it right away. So I can feel when the thing's coming flat, because I'm not getting the same little vibration. So I'll just feel that, and that's good. And then 4000. And I used to do all four sides, but I don't do that anymore because I never use the two. So being, kind of a weekend and holiday woodworker, because I have to have a regular job, I like to try and speed things up as much as possible and maximize the amount of work I can get done. And I can feel that is skating along just like a skate on the ice. Go Oilers. Well, maybe not this year. Okay, so I've got nice smooth sides, and I am ready to put a burr on that thing. And just for the sake of expediency, I'll put a burr on one side and I'll leave the other. Here we are, we've got the cabinet scraper firmly in the end vise, and I've got a Veritas burner. I really like the Veritas tools. I like every tool, but these ones are usually reasonably priced, and it's at least someplace in Canada you can actually get to. Now you don't want to use this dry. There's a possibility you can actually cut into the scraper surface. And this one's in pretty good shape. I've had this one about 14 years now, I think. And it's still, it's got a few scuffs on it, but it's not too bad. And I read somewhere in an old book that what they used to do is, or what some people used to do, is you take your finger and you rub it on the side of your nose and get some nose grease, and you put that, you can put it on the scraper or on the burnisher, but quite commonly people put it on the scraper. So you put a little nose grease on there. I know it's a little disgusting, but I tried it and it's always worked. What you want to do is hold the scraper firmly and make a few passes firmly, but not too hard so you deflect the scraper straight across. It shouldn't take more than 5 or 6 of these. And then what you do is you tilt the scraper just a few degrees in either direction, and you do the same thing. And that's how you turn the hook, or turn the burr on it. And this is the one I like to be careful about, and I do drag it a little. I've found that it's more effective that way if you drag down, but you can see that it's deflecting. You probably should do it in one motion, and I used to when I had a metalworking vise, but I no longer have a metalworking vise, so I have to do it this way, and the benchtop gets in the way. Okay, now I see I have a burr on there. We'll go see how sharp it is. So you can see when it's sharp, you should get fluffy little shavings like this and not sawdust. So that's how I do it. I normally take a little bit more time with it. Not much, maybe 5 minutes longer than that. But I wanted to get this video up. My daughter insisted that once I hit 500, I had to put one of these videos up. So you've seen pretty much everything that I do. The only thing that's different that I would say is that if I'm resharpening, I just do the burnishing part and I leave out all the filing. The filing is only when it gets into bad shape or when you're using a cabinet scraper for the first time. Other than that, once you use a cabinet scraper on something, you basically don't need to sand it. Maybe a touch-up, maybe a corner, maybe a little bit of sanding someplace, but really you can't get a finer surface really than with a scraper. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. Get out and sharpen some cabinet scrapers. See, Daddy's little stubby screwdriver, baby's little stubby screwdriver. I might have a carpenter on my hands.